All right, so for today we are starting off with a little bit of algebra review because this is Algebra 2. And guess what you need to know before you can do Algebra 2? Algebra 1. And that's what we're talking about right now. I had a suggestion of a problem like this. I'm making up a new one that's similar but different. This one's really nice because it's already set up. What do I mean? It's already equal to 0. The one you gave me had a number over there. What if there's a number over there instead of 0? What if it's like a 2 over there? What do you do to fix that? You guys know? Yes?
Subtract 2?
Yeah. You just get the number out of there so it equals 0. X squared minus 6x minus 3. Please copy that one down. And the first thing I want you to do is to try to factor it. Because if you can factor it, you should. Very good answer. If you can factor it, you should. Now, it won't take too long for you to realize the thing won't factor. How do you know that? Well, because there's no number that you can put with a plus and a minus. It has to be a plus and a minus because this is negative. How else are you going to make these two question marks make a negative? One has to be negative, one has to be positive. There is no combo that would work. That would multiply out and give you a negative 3 here. And when you put the outside and the inside together, would make a 6. There's nothing. So if it won't factor, you ask the question, do you know the answer? What are you supposed to do? Or I know that's maybe the reason you asked me, but do you remember now that I said try to factor it, and if it doesn't factor, then nope, apparently you don't. So here it is. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac. You got it, all over 2a. That formula is what you have to use. All right.
Thank you.
Yes. So let's actually stick the numbers in it, though, so people get what is A, B, and C. What the heck is the A? It's a 1. What is the B? It's a negative 2. What is the C? It's a negative 3. So there's my A, B, and C. And B is negative 6, so I'm sticking a negative 6 here and a negative 6 there. A is 1. Well, that's easy. That's a 1 and that's a 1. And then the C is negative 3, so that's a negative 3. And from there, negative 6 simplifies to 6, plus and minus, square root of 36 plus 12, 48, all over 2. Now this one is particularly nasty because this can be simplified further. I'm not going to go further with this question because I just made it up out of my head. And usually the ones that we give you on the first 20, these can't be simplified. So that would make them easier. I made this a little too hard because now we got to deal with the square root of 48. And you got to know that that's the square root of 4 and the square root of, 4 times what is 48? 4 times 12? Okay. Or you could go square root of 16 times the square root of 3, I think. That also makes 48, and that one's better because the square root of 16 works out nice. What is it? So this is really 4 root 3, and this would have been a little too hard because the answer for this one is 6 plus and minus 4 root 3 all over 2, which actually has a common factor in here and here of a 2. And this, again, like I said, it's too hard. But I'm going to just finish it because some smart kids out there like to know, well, what was the answer, Mr. Server? It's 3 plus and minus 2 root 3. Okay. But the thing I definitely need you to know is that when you can't factor a quadratic, you use the quadratic formula. That's going to come up in this class a bunch of times. That's why it's on that basics review. You know what's the most important one? Factoring. So let's practice a factoring one. X squared minus 6x minus 7. Can you factor that? That one factors. It's a bold thing for a math teacher to pick a favorite. It's kind of like asking your parents to pick a favorite child. They're going to resist. They're going to be like, I love all of you. I love all of math, but there's my one favorite thing, only because Kids seem to struggle with it, and it happens all the time. Factoring in this class is going to come up over and over and over again. And you know what happens when you go to pre-calc next year? Factoring again, over and over and over and over and over again. And so if you don't get it, you're just going to get pounded. All right, so let's get this down. X and X. Do you remember from what I said a second ago? Can it be plus and plus? No. Can it be minus and minus? No, because if I had two negatives, that wouldn't give me a -7 when I multiplied them. So it has to be a plus and a minus. And then last but not least, I made it kind of easy because 7 only has two numbers that you can factor it to, 1 and 7. And is this the right answer? No, it's not. How do I know? Because in my head quick, the first, sure, they make x squared. The last, sure, that makes -7. But you'll find out that the factoring really always comes down to these two, the outside and the inside. In the world of FOIL, first, outside, inside, last, the outside and the inside are the key ones. And the inside here, I just did it real quick in my head, and I went, oh, the inside ones give you -7, and the outside gives you +7x. And when I put them together, that doesn't make -6x, does it? Now, whenever you get the opposite of what you wanted, then you change the signs around. I know you could have also changed the numbers, but trust me, when they get complicated, this rule always works. If you ever get the opposite of what you want, change the signs around. Because see, if there was a number here, it would all be different. And my advice to you, I just gave you, would still work. If you get the opposite of what you want, change the signs. That changes to plus, that changes to minus, and now it's factored right. How many of you actually had it factored right? Raise your hand if you did it. Okay, good. Then what are the answers? Well, it's pretty easy, I think. It's what makes this 0. And it's what makes that 0. The factoring was important, but the actual final answer was 7 and -1. Those are called the x-intercepts. They got 4 names. You know there's something's important if there's 4 different ways to ask the question. What are the roots? 7 and -1. What are the zeros? 7 and -1. What are the x-intercepts? 7 and -1. What is the solution to this equation? 7 and -1. There's 4 different ways to ask it. Roots, solutions, zeros, x-intercepts. So they're a big deal. All right. Do you get why this is different than what you asked? Because this one factored. And if they don't factor, then you got to use that quadratic formula. All right. What's another thing we could talk about from that top 20 or first 20?
So number 13.
Read it.
Like in those straight lines, and it was like x minus 9.
Bars.
Yeah, equals 1. And I thought when it was in those bars, it made it the equation positive.
Okay. It's a good thing to talk about. Let's talk about it for a second. What the bars do does have to do with making something positive, but here's the way you should think of it. Would you agree that what I just scribbled out could either be 1 or it could be -1? And either way, the answer would equal 1, wouldn't it? So that's the way you should think, is what's inside there could either be a +1 or it could be a -1. So what's inside there is x minus 9, and that could either be 1 or x minus 9 could be -1. That's why there's 2 answers. So the thing you were thinking of is if you just do bars around a number, you're right, it makes that number positive. But when you put a variable in there, it's more complicated. When you put a variable in there, what you're saying is what's in here, let's say it had to equal 10. It could either equal -10 and it would work, or that thing in there could equal +10 and it'll work. So you'll get 2 answers. Like in this case, if I had -7 right there, that would make it equal -10 and that would work. Or if there was a 13 there, that would also give me the right answer. So there's 2 answers. So to finish this one off, x equaled 10. X equals 8. And if I go back and put them in, 10 minus 9 is 1. Yay, it worked. And 8 minus 9 is -1. bars around it, still works. Okay, that was a good one to talk about. And let's stop there. Does that mean I think you're all mastered? No, but I think we got to talk about the new stuff for today. And if you still have weaknesses, we're going to have work time today, please walk up and say, I still don't get this time. Or go watch the videos or something to get help. And that's why I'm saying don't move it to regular higher algebra if you're weak on this stuff, because regular higher algebra needs you to know the same algebra. Okay, so you still got to learn these, whether you go down to the easier class or not. So just learn them and stay here. All right, so what else are we learning for today? Well, mostly it's this PEMDAS one. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. 2 minus 3 parentheses, 5 minus 4 parentheses, let's say squared. Can you just do this from left to right? No, you can't. If you never, I know some of you heard left to right when the teacher was teaching this back in the day, but left to right is not just something you can just always do. You have to do it in a certain order, and it's not just from left to right. If you do 2 minus 3 to start this problem, you're going to get it wrong. It won't work. So what do you do? Well, I personally go like this. PEMDAS, I don't write it on my paper, but I go through it in my head, and I say to myself, is there any parentheses? And by the way, you're getting all grown up now. It's not just parentheses. It's any grouping symbol. Like absolute value bars are just like parentheses. And so are square roots. If there was a big square root in there, that would act just like parentheses. So it should really be GEMDAS. I'm probably not going to call it that, but G for grouping symbols. It really isn't just parentheses. It's any grouping symbol like square roots, absolute values, anything that groups a cluster together. And I ask myself on a problem like that, what is the first thing I should do? The parentheses or the grouping symbols. So I guess I should do that. So what is 5 minus 4? 1. And then I don't just immediately go back and go left to right. No, I got to ask myself again, is there any parentheses? Well, no, I already did them. Now, is there any exponents? Yes. This 1 has to get squared, and that'll be 1. And now I've done enough that I should probably rewrite it. 2 minus 3 times, what was all of this stuff? 1 squared, what was that? It was a 1. And what's in between these two? Times. So now I can't just go left or right again. I have to ask myself, is there any parentheses? No. Is there any exponents? No. Is there any multiplies? Yes, there is. 3 times 1 is 3, so I'll just do that and say it's 3. Now I can finally do the subtract. 2 minus 3, negative 1. Okay? That's the biggest thing for today. Like, I could stop right there. So here's your worksheet. Why aren't you going to stop right there? Because, of course, there's some more complicated ones like it. But that's all it is can you do things in the right order, even when it's complicated? So here's one that's complicated. 2 minus 3 square root of 10 minus 9 all over 4 minus 5 squared. Ew. Copy that one down, please. It'll take you a second. We'll battle through this nasty thing. And there's some things that people don't know about these. Like, you might say, okay, parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract, but there's no parentheses here. But what did I tell you were like parentheses? Square roots. And there's something called implied parentheses. Let me make sure you get what implied means. If I walk over to you and I say, hey, we're having a party this weekend, isn't that kind of implying that I'm inviting him? Like, I'd be a big jerk if I was like, hey, we're having a party, and I don't want you to come. Right? So if you say, we're having a party, it's implied that I'm inviting you. Well, with a fraction like this, there are implied parentheses here and here. Did you know that? If you didn't know that, they're there. They're implied. Why does that matter? Because if I had 1 over 2 plus 3, if I just did 1 divided by 2 plus 3, Do you get that that would be a different answer? But if you know that there's implied parentheses here, then there'd be implied parentheses here, and then I'll get the right answer. Okay, so implied parentheses, things that aren't there but are implied. If I say 2a, there's an implied multiply in between. It's implied. You're supposed to know it's there. Well, in case you didn't know, there's parentheses on the top and the bottom. Do you get that means that I have to get the whole top done before I mess with the bottoms? It's true. Because if I wrote this out from left to right, that top parenthesis would be first. And then I would say divide for the fraction bar. And then the other one would be on the bottom. So I got to do the top first. Now that I'm inside the top parentheses, I'm zooming in there. Of the rest of the things, can I just go from left to right now? No, you almost never go from left to right. When do you ever go from left to right? If it's tied. If I've got two multiplies, they're tied. Then which one do you do? Then you go from left to right. It's only when something's tied. Like I got two subtracts. Okay, fine. Then you should go from left to right. It will make a difference. But only when you're tied. Okay, so now I'm looking at this. I can't just go from left to right. I go to parentheses, exponents, etc. Oh, what's first? Parentheses, which is really grouping symbols, which is really that. That has to be first. What is 10 minus 9? 1. Can I just go from left to right now? No. I stop and I go, okay, I did my parenthesis, my grouping symbol. And that's a 1 now. Now it's the square root of 1. Isn't that also a grouping symbol, kind of? Yeah. You probably don't know this, but the square root of 1 is really 1 to the 1/2 power. That's technically a power. So it comes next. Either whether you consider it because it's a grouping symbol or because that's actually a power, either way, it's got to be next. So what is the square root of 1? What's the square root of 1? Ooh, a lot of kids last hour didn't know this either. Square root of 1 is 1. Very good. Let's talk about what square roots are. Square root of 16 is 4 because 4 times 4 makes 16. What's the square root of 1? 1, because 1 times 1 makes 1. Okay, so the square root of 1 is 1. How about the square root of 0? Some people are like, oh, that doesn't exist. No, it's just 0. Because 0 times 0 makes 0. So square root of 0 exists. Square roots of negatives don't exist. They made up a letter for it. Do you know what square root of negative 1 is? I. Who had that one? All right, bonus smart points. Nice job. That's I for imaginary number. Square roots of negatives don't exist, so they make up this thing called I for imaginaries. All right, so back to this problem that we were fighting through. We had just finished the square root of 1, and it was 1. That's a lot to keep in your head. But now the top part here is simplified down to 2 minus 3 times 1. Can I just go from left to right yet? No, because there's a times. What's 3 times 1? It's 3. So now it's done. And now it's 2 to 2 minus 3. Finally. What's that? Negative 1. So the top of this whole thing was negative 1. Negative 1 on the top. And now it simplify the bottom thing. Can I go from left to right? No. It'd be 4 minus 5? No. You can't do 4 minus 5. You got to do 5 squared. What's 5 squared? 25. What is 4 minus 25? Negative 21. If you left that answer, I would cry a little bit and mark it wrong. Because why? Two negatives, they cancel. The final answer is 1/21. That was disgusting. So many little steps. Do you get if you do one step wrong, you get the whole thing wrong? Math is picky that way. And some things in real life are picky. There are some things in life that are picky. Like if you're driving and there's a sign that says, do not enter. You can't just enter there because you're going down the wrong way onto a ramp and you're going to probably cause a massive accident and maybe die. How about the one-way sign? Is that picky? Yeah, you can't go that way on a one-way that's that way or you're going to die. So there's some things that are picky in life. You can't drink ammonia. Dang it. So anyway, there's some things that are really picky. Do you know that if you mix, well, I don't even want to tell you because some kids will probably do it. There's certain household chemicals, if you mix them together, you make poisonous gas and it'll kill you. Like, there's some things that are picky in life. Just can't do that. All right, so these are really picky. You do one step in the wrong order and it's all wrong. I think I've made my point. This is the part where we get to the homework. Everybody find the homework. You are ready to go with just doing PEMDAS today. If that is too easy for you, fantastic. You can come up during the work time and ask me about some other stuff that's like more important for you. Like if you just got a 3 out of 20, you should be up visiting me going, okay, I struggled on this thing. Can you show me how to do this, this, and this? Happily. Then I'll know you're going to make it. If you just quietly sit there and suffer, I'm going to be worried that you're not going to make it. Okay, you got the worksheet open? Would you read me numero uno, sir?
Yeah. 7 times 3 minus 8 divided 2.
Or is it like a big fraction?
Yeah, minus 3 squared plus 1. And the plus 1 is not an exponent.
Did they use a divide by sign or a slash like I did?
No, it's a divide sign.
Okay, I'll use a divide sign. They mean the same thing, but I want to make sure mine looks like yours. Okay, can I just go from left to right? No, almost never. When do you go from left to right? When you have a tie between two minuses. And you're like, well, which minus should I do? Go from left to right. All right, so the first thing is parentheses. I don't see any. Is there any other grouping symbols? Nope. Then it's exponents. Do you see one? Then you got to do that first. Now, if I was an evil math teacher who was going to be like super strict, I would say now rewrite the whole thing with having done that just one step. I think that's a little too much. So 3 squared is 9. I would just kind of scribble it out and put a 9. And I can do that much. And I could probably do at least one more step before I rewrite it. So now I'm going to stop and go back and go, is there any parentheses? No. Is there any exponents? No. Is there any multiplies or divides? Yes. Do you get that multiplies and divides are tied? Some people think multiplies go before divides. That is wrong. Multiplies and divides are tied. So you go from left to right. So I got this multiply and I got that divide. Which one's first? Does it make a difference? Yes. You'll get different answers. So now is the moment you go from left to right. 7 times 3 is 21. I still think you don't have to rewrite yet. 8 divided by 2. You could say negative 8 divided by 2, but either way, be careful with your negative. It's still there. Negative 4. And now I think it's time to rewrite. It's getting so messy. 21 minus 4 minus 9 plus 1. At some point, you have to rewrite. If you just have scribbled out stuff and the answer, I will mark it wrong. You have to have one time where you rewrite your work. I don't expect every line. I could ask you for 6 lines here. I'm not. I'm asking you for one time where you rewrite the problem and clean it up. And then you can go directly to your final answer, because I bet you can do this in your head. Since they're tied, I'm going left to right. 21 minus 4 is, I think, 17. 17 minus 9 in my head, I think, is 8. 17 minus 9, is that 8? Anybody verify it's 8? I think it's 8. Good. 8 plus 1? I think that's the final answer. I'm going to double check it in my head quick. You know what? I'm going to use my computer to double check it. It's just using technology in a good way, I think. What is 21 minus 4 minus 9 plus 1? It's 9. Yay. Okay. All right. Yay, we got through the first one. Now, every now and then, the assignment has just a few too many problems on it. This one is not very long, but I am going to alleviate just one of them for you. I feel like number 4 is not necessary, so I'm okay with you skipping number 4, so you can just kind of scribble it out, but do the rest of them. Number 4, we already practiced that on the basic 20, so if you need to practice, do it. It's not like I'm making you skip it, but you may skip number 4. Remember, you have to show me one rewrite along the way to the answer. I personally would do maybe 1 or 2 rewrites and then the answer. But don't just have a bunch of things scribbled out and then the answer. All right, that's all I got for you for today.